who just wants to be out in nature foraging. And here I am also in the world of tech, happy to be with you all.
Yeah, me too. So we're going live now and we're recording too. Is it is it visible? It's just going to be us where we see only us? Is that how it works?
That's correct, and I'm going to be trying to monitor the comments so that if we get questions or comments, we'll invite people to have comments or questions, and then I'll verbalize those out. I'm setting up my second computer now to make sure that we can do that. Thanks for the question, David.
This is so fun. Oh my gosh.
Well, of course, you know that if I do any demos, I'm going to have to do it with the three of you.
Okay. Great.
Is that okay? Sounds good.
Good job scaring me. Thanks.
Okay. Well, so we can just start talking here, right? Is that okay? Sounds good.
Good job.
And an echo too. Huh. Okay. Well, lovely. I'm really glad to be invited here, and we have a half hour, and I'm going to share some things that just to, half hour is not a lot of time, and at the same time, when you touch in empathically, sometimes it can be quite potent, and you don't need a lot of time, I find. So when I think about nonviolent communication and what I love about it, is, of course there's, what Marshall Rosenberg did, which was to really nail the parts of our languaging that support hierarchies and domination and controlling ways of being. That's our culture. And and so many of these habits are so below our radar that we practice them over and over, and we reaffirm and repractice ways of power over and domination, and so he nailed a lot of the practices that really support that and gave us some alternatives that support more of a training and a practicing of being in our compassionate ways, and that I love. And so his book I highly recommend. Very simple and to read, and endlessly interesting. The piece I like to bring to the learning, and I did have the good fortune of working with Marshall and several other teachers I respect and appreciate, and in this realm and in the somatic realm, which is mind-body realm, and as an Aikido practitioner, which is essentially nonverbal, nonviolent communication, and living in an intentional community where it started over 30 years ago with 9 other families. There's a lot of place to practice there. And not everybody practices NVC, even though we adopted it many years ago. But many people have left since then, and others have come, and I'm one of the old guys there. And I took it seriously, and mainly because relationships can be so painful and community can be so difficult sometimes, that I found NVC as a really good foundation for building relationships. And what motivates me to do this, to be here today, is after living in community all these years, I recognize that it's within community where we really exercise our faculties for empathy, our ability to listen to the ground level of what matters to each other and to ourselves and meet there. And to discern between that and the strategies that we all choose, some of them very tragic, some of them very old, that we learned when we were younger that served us then but not now, and they need to be shifted. So this is all important work. So interesting, for all you listeners, but I'll just ask the 3 of you I see right here. Were you ever asked in school growing up, what do you care about? How about this? Were you ever asked in school growing up, what would you love to learn today? That's the question I love to
And I'd
ask.
like to,
Yeah, go ahead.
and I'd like to invite people to go ahead and type in their answers, and I'll read them out into the comments. Thanks, David, for that question.
You're welcome. I have to say that, you know, I teach all around the world, and I just taught 30 people from China and 30 or more from Spain, and I've traveled and I've asked that question to so many people, and maybe 1 in 30 people would have sort of been asked that question. Mostly we're not asked that question. Most of us in school are given subjects to learn, and the ones who can think the best, who can memorize and could learn the answers, those people were rewarded. The rest of us were not, you know. And, you know, if you're people like me, I tend to feel a lot, and that's not usually rewarded in school. In fact, it's sort of even made fun of. You feel, you know, that kind of thing. Consequently, we practice thinking over feeling. And because we don't, it's not valued so much, feeling, we tend to not use it. And what we don't use, we lose. That's how nature works. And other things take over, like our thinking processes. That is why, in my opinion, NVC takes really a rigorous, committed practice over time to learn. Because when you think about how long you've practiced other things, and here's the thing, you're always practicing something. That's how we learn. By the way, Eric, that's a somatic guideline. You know, you're always practicing something. You're practicing how you're sitting. You're practicing how you're judging me or not. You're practicing how you're listening. You're practicing how you're breathing. We learn through repetition and recurrence. Not only that, we learn by the qualities that we imbue into what we do. For example, if we practice NVC as a tool in a toolbox, and we pull out this language, and we don't connect deep caring to it, and connection to what matters to us and others, then what we are practicing is a form of disconnection. And that's why I approach NVC as a whole life practice, as an art that to embody, to practice in a way that our bodies are a part of the learning. So what we say, what we think, what we feel, there's a unity. And when we do that, then we're in our power. What we say has a lot of power to it. And when we don't, then we create double messages. So I want to put this out to people who are about to embark on learning NVC, and to all of us who have practiced a lot. That if I came into this class like this, here we go. Hi. I'm very relaxed, and I'm going to use some really wonderful words today so that we can all relax together and connect. Okay, now I want to ask you something. When I talk like this, how do you feel, Jane? Do you feel relaxed?
I did. I took some deeper breaths.
Now watch this. Now let's relax. When I do that, how does that feel?
I was confused. I didn't know what you were doing.
Here I was tightening up. Interesting. So did you notice that I was like this?
Like the second time?
As I come in and I'm sitting here like this, and I'm
Yeah.
talking to you about relaxing. When my body is not relaxed, and I'm using these wonderful words to relax, and I'm wondering what I'm communicating, how does that feel to you, Eric, when I'm like this?
Yeah, I was confused because I was looking at you and you look more closed off. You look like I looked when I started calling. It's like, yeah, I'm totally ready. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Not if you can hear me. Yeah, I was just like, that's why I was laughing. I was like, this is not the David Weinstock that started the phone call. This is Eric Wong sitting down to a phone call.
Mark.
So yeah.
Thank you. Mark, if I do this and I move from here and I'm talking to you and I go like this.
Well, for me, when you walked in originally, I said, oh my God, inauthenticity. And then when you loosened up, it's like, oh, thank God.
Right. I think it's pretty impossible to express ourselves if our body is contracted and triggered in emotional pain and the histories that we all have. As we're putting nice words on top of them, we get double messages. And people feel generally before they think. So it's really important for us to me, all of NVC practices are centering practices and resourcing practices so we can relax mind and body. So, and that's why sometimes it's difficult when we're learning and memorizing NVC to get it in the body. That's why you have to know what you care about. So for anyone who wants to take NVC seriously over a lifetime as a practice, I ask you this question. What do you really care about in all relationships, to yourself, to each other? That question that was not asked to us when we were growing up. What matters to you? And I'm gonna ask Eric, because I'd like to approach something carefully. So and if you don't have an answer, that's quite all right. Just be curious that you don't have an answer, and that's a good thing to know. Because even if when you don't know something, and you can acknowledge and be aware of it, it leaves room for answers to come. What do you care about, Eric, in all relationships?
For me, I think it's mattering. I think it's just really mattering that I matter to you and that you matter to me. I think for me, that's probably at the core for me.
Thank you. We could continue on that conversation, but it's short of time. And I would say, that mattering is really important to you. And when you have that, for the sake of what are you really practicing that or wanting to do that? But then it's almost redundant. Why does mattering matter to you? But we're not going to go there right now. What I'm going to ask you now is this. In your practice with NVC, in your life, what is one quality that you would love to cultivate a little more in your life that would support that mattering and the learning to listen to what matters to you and to others? What is it? What is one quality you would love to cultivate more of?
For me, it's presence, being resourced so I can be really present with the other person and really get the other person.
So presence, is that a need? I'm going to ask all you. What do you think, Mark? What do you think, Jane?
I would say that for me, presence is a need. Presence for me speaks to wanting to be with myself, be aware of myself, be connected to myself, which I could also define as being connected to a higher power.
Or others. Good. Jane, Did you see that, Jane? Did you see it as a need? Presence. Do we all need presence?
Yeah, it's a need, and it's also like a verb. It's a way of being for me.
Well, remember when we talk about needs, the language of life, as Marsha would say,
Right.
these are words we use to describe life. All these words we call needs are all facets of the same gem of life. They're life. And if they are life, then my goodness, that's pretty expansive. And my thought is you can explore these things we call needs for the rest of our lives. It's bountiful, the learning, and it's so much more than a word. So how do you practice it as a whole life state of being? So I'd like to, in the time I have, offer a very short practice. It goes like this. And we'll use the word presence. Why not? So I'd ask everybody to sit with your head above your heart, above your belly. It's vertical line. I like that line of integrity. When we think, we feel, we intuit, it's connected to the ground we're connected to. And I like my higher knowing, that vertical line. And take a deep breath and go like this. And settle your system. Take a deep breath in and make a noise. I can't hear you, Eric. You don't have to. It's a request. But would you, for me, there you go. A little louder. Okay. It feels good. You got to admit. Okay, good. Now, everybody, ask yourself this question. And this is, by the way, an empathic question to the body, meaning you're not supposed to know the answer. It's a question to connect. Ask yourself, ask your body, how would it feel right now if I had just a tiny bit of that presence that I love? Just a tiny bit. How would that feel? Use your imagination. When you do that, what goes on in your body? Mark, what did you notice?
Well, I let go of the posture that you suggested and just loosened up. When you asked Eric the question, what's important? One of the words that came to mind for me was freedom. And what happened in that moment was I gave myself the freedom. I gave my body the freedom to be as it wanted to be.
And did you ask yourself, how would it feel to have a little more presence?
Well, as I asked it, I experienced more presence.
What did that feel like?
It was a loosening up. It felt freedom. It felt, you want a real feeling word?
No. We are going to feelings.
A body feeling word. Yeah, it was It was a very relaxing feeling. It was a moment of relaxation.
The only thing I'm suggesting right now for this practice is answers come to our empathic questions in many ways. And the only response I would have for any answer is thank you, and curiosity and care. And, so when you said, and I was just listening, when you give an empathy guess, people people give you information sometimes. And that's what you did. You said, oh, I feel more relaxed. And my next question to you would be, where?
Well, it was in my shoulders and it was my upper body, because that was the part of my body that was more tense.
And it's sort of relaxing.
That was the part of my body that I gave the freedom to practice freedom.
So there you go. for right now, all we're doing is noticing that this is history. These are strategies that we have practiced where we tighten, and they are to protect our sense of safety or belonging or things we've learned in our lives. And without going into it right now, just appreciate for just a moment the intention of those older strategies are really out of care for you instead of fighting them. That's kind of a beginning place of this work. But mostly it's basically the shape of presence. Oh, my shoulders relax. And learning the shape of these things we call needs, somatic whole self-impression, mind, what it tells us, what we think, what we feel. As we explore them, then the place we can come to when we are wondering, am I being present here? What would presence do here? How can I be more present? We can go to our mind and body and go, oh, that's familiar. Now I'm being present. Now I'm not. Yes, Jane.
I want to share that when you asked that question, what happened to me is like literally my torso wiggled from side to side. And then what happened is that my belly contracted, but you know why? It's because I was able to sit taller. And then I leaned forward, like just with more spinal support. Like instead of splaying out my belly out, it like, but it contracted, but to support me. And then I was like super laser focused on, this all.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, isn't it? And all we're doing here is being curious. This is empathic listening to ourselves and not knowing the answers. We can listen to those places we tighten up because, those are historical places, strategies serving needs. To work with those places, we have to go to the needs underneath those strategies. And that's another time. With me, by the way, which is important. I think it's valuable work. It's foundational work, is building that internal unity. So, Eric, if you sit with head above heart, above belly, and you make that silly sound, and you ask yourself, how would it feel right now if you had just a tiny bit more of that presence that you love to cultivate? Let's just take a moment, imagine that for a moment, and notice what happens if you imagine what that would feel like. What goes on in your body?
I'm feeling both. I'm feeling the presence of gravity more. I'm feeling both lightness and gravity.
Mm.
I'm more aware of the sensations in my fingers. I have my finger over a mute button and on the keyboard. Yeah, I'm feeling the warmth of the cell phone charger in my right hand. Yeah, I'm noticing more sensations.
Hmm. Do you feel any tightening?
No, actually, I feel more supported, actually.
So I just want to share. I know this is just an intro, but it's just kind of, I'm hoping to pique people's curiosity about at least these things we call needs. When you shape yourself, let's try another one just quickly. Ask yourself right now, if you would. It's a request, not a demand. How would it feel right now to have a little tiny bit more kindness? Kindness for self, kindness for others. It's not a strategy. It's just a quality of being. These things we call needs primarily are qualities, states of being. And by cultivating them, they can be guides for us in our lives. What would kindness do now? What would kindness say right now? How would kindness be? And instead of looking for the words, we can go to our whole practice of listening and shaping ourselves and exploring that quality over time and come back to it as moving from the inside out. So ask yourself right now, how would it feel right now to have a little more kindness? What'd that feel like? And Jane, what happens when you think about, when you ask, oh, what happens, Eric? Yes, please, go ahead.
I felt a little burst in my solar plexus, and it just kind of bubbled up, as I would call it joy, actually. But that's what it felt like. The instant you said that word, imagine what it would feel like for kindness. I'm complete.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Those are the kind of things we look for. Something's relaxing when you explore kindness, and we're only saying a little bit. And if people say, well, I don't deserve kindness, and they tighten, then you say just a little tiny bit. Then you just, and it's still difficult, then you say just one molecule. It's really difficult to be kind with others if we're struggling with being kind in ourselves. And Katie says, when kindness sits in my body, I feel lighter and less tense in my muscles. That warmth you felt, Eric, that's the contraction opening up, and not just blood, but life moving through you. And consequently, we learn to, when we contract, those are old strategies. This is the somatic piece we were talking about before class. And we're just touching on it, but it's an important piece. One, somatics teach about how to practice. How do you practice something to, over time, embody it? So that when you embody it, like being an artist, which, I'm a goldsmith and a martial artist, to embody the practice, it means that it's in you and you can be creative with it. You're not thinking of how you should do it. You're moving from it and being creative. And that's how I love to approach NVC as an art. And, how do you practice? And in part, it begins with really knowing what matters to you. Why are you here today? You've got other things you could be doing, but you're doing this here now because something matters to you. And if you can articulate that, that helps to keep you on a path over the long term. Otherwise, it's really easy to get distracted and go back to old habits. So you got to know what matters to you. That if people walk away with anything today, it's that piece. And the other piece is this. Our bodies contain the sum total of our history. You can't lose it. As much pain, and when we're feeling those contractions and pain inside of us, those are parts of us that are asking us to listen with empathy. And when we do that, just like if someone over here is talking to me trying to help and I ignore them, they get louder. If I can turn to them and include them in my listening, deep listening, then we can start to work together and create new strategies that are more appropriate, that support who it is we choose to become now, instead of the old practices that are unconscious, that keep us in old patterns. Does that make sense? I'll give you one quick little, if I had to say in 3 minutes what NVC is. This is really a challenge, by the way. If you got someone you are jackling about, it's just someone that's a situation that's difficult for you and someone else. Who's got one of them that's sort of alive right now that they would be willing to just work with me with for a moment? No jackals?
Okay, I have one
Sure.
you can play with. It's not a strong one, but I can have one.
Okay. I know we're live, so who would I be? You can make up a name, but you know who it is.
Well, as we were sitting here, my housemate just came downstairs to do laundry, and there was a little jackal that said, "Why is he coming down now? We're doing this important session." So it's my
So
housemate.
let's say it's kind of a lie, but why don't you pretend I'm your roommate and you were upset and what would you say to me? And
Dave,
I'm
you
over
really
here. I'm doing the laundry. What?
Yeah, Dave, you really have to come down now. Dave, you're making even more noise right now. Can you give me some attention?
It's my house too.
Yeah, it's your house too. But I let you know that I had something going on, that something really important is going on.
Okay, now stop. Thank you, Mark. Now, bear with me. Use your imagination, please. You were just speaking. Take a breath and imagine that message. Just your attention. Bring your attention. Take the elevator down to your heart. And just, put your attention right here. And imagine that your heart had a mouth. And same message, using don't worry about the same words or anything, but what do you want to imagine the same thing is happening, but you're speaking from there. What do you want to say?
Well, what my heart would be saying while all that
I'm
dialogue.
going to hold you. Not second person, not what my heart would want to say. Bring your attention down into your heart and imagine that that's where the mouth is. And just speak from that place.
Yeah, everything's okay. Everything's okay. There was an interruption, and that's okay. There we go. My housemate's making some noise, doing some stuff that's important to him.
Is there something you want to say to him? Are you going to say something to me?
No.
Okay. So it's not really a big deal then. Okay. So sometimes you might, if you were going to say something to me, what would you say?
Well, I actually said something to my housemate in my heart. It was, yeah, go ahead and do the laundry.
Okay. Often when we move down to our heart, it's not a fight. And, I was kind of imagining you might say, hey, roommate, I'm on this important call. Would you mind if we did it just in a few minutes? We'll be done. That's a heartfelt thing. And at this point, what you've came up with, it doesn't really matter and everything's okay. So that's okay too.
Actually, my heart spoke to my brain and said, you have a mute button. Don't get upset. Just mute yourself.
Who said that? Your head or your heart?
My heart said it to my head, said, hey, calm down. There's nothing to worry about. You can just mute yourself.
Interesting. For me, what this work is about is clearing the bramble between the head and the heart. And sometimes that is really, really, really hard work because we've practiced other things. I watched Marshall Rosenberg do that. And I just, how do you do that? And I just kept at it. It's been 20 years. And now I don't think there's an easy way. I think it takes deliberate, committed practice over time. You got to know what matters to you. You got to have a picture of what it is that you'd like to create in your life. Then you break it down, chunk it down, practice, correct, practice, correct, practice, correct. And that's how you build the learning pathways. And I think that's our time. And I hope this was useful. I do hope that I invite conversations. I know that I'm only here as a guest for a half hour. My email is davidkweinstock@gmail.com, and I invite further conversations. I really love to cultivate community over time, and this NVC learning community that we are is precious to me.
And David, I'd like to just read out a few messages so that you can hear them. Let's see. Melissa Balin says this is useful. Thanks, everybody. And we're inviting you to stay. There's more. Jessica Lynn says she loved it. Oil Lamp Breeze says mind and heart. Menako Sodu says maintain heart coherence. And I want to thank you, David, for joining us today. You are a certified trainer. You've run a number of classes. I personally have heard so many things about you, and your classes scare me, so that's probably the best reason for me to come take them with you. And yeah, so I think we're so grateful to have you here today. Oh, Lori Bauer says it was a beautiful NBC snack. Oh, Lori Bauer, certified trainer.
Nice.
Yeah, and so thanks so much, David, for being with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I have to say something though, Eric. Well, to take my class, that came from your and my conversation before, and I just want so people know I really work hard at not being a scary guy, and and here's the thing, and this is what you were referring to. I just want to bring everybody up to speed in the conversation. That, when you start really listening to your body and the feelings and the needs that it puts you in touch with and the history, it's so different than trying to get there through your head. It's really immediate. And yes, that is scary. And just like sometimes when we face people who are scary with that empathic listening, and we see their humanity, they become less scary. And so when we were talking about somatics and it being scary, yeah, it is. But we do it, whenever I do that with anybody, it's with great respect, care, not pushing. And we go there and they lead. I guide, but they lead. And so I would maintain that your body, Eric, and all of ours are really our best friends. Sometimes they don't seem that way, though. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you,
I just had to say that,
David. No, thanks. And yeah, thanks for. It's not that you're scary; it's that I am scared, and that's just. It's not. So thank you for saying that, and thank you for sharing that. Our bodies are our friends. I'll try to remember that. And I believe I want to do a real quick plug. You're going to go off and do an interview for the Living Connected podcast right now. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And as long as you're plugging, I might just mention, I am working with NBC Global Rising. It looks like we're going to do potentially a year-long program beginning in September. I'll be one of the lead trainers, and I'll be teaching a foundational piece like we're talking about of working with our bodies. And then there'll be a whole bunch of other trainers, guest trainers through the year. So keep your eyes out for that one.
Wow.
Should be
that
fun.
Sounds amazing. That might be a great start for me in NBC.
Ooh, check it out. I think it will be. I'm excited about it. I think it's... Anyway.
One last request for our friends. So I'm going to ask Mark and Jane for gifts received. And I'm going to ask our viewers to type in any additional gifts received from David, and we'll make sure that he gets them. So gift received, Jane and or Mark.
I like the reminder of the somatic tie-in with our bodies and feeling the living energy of the needs. David, I've always really liked how you've brought that into your work. And, I practice a lot of yoga. And so I find that just to be really compatible with that and sort of mindfulness in general. So I was looking forward to tonight, and that was definitely a gift that you came through on. So thank you.
Welcome.
David, you reminded me the high school I went to. I went to John Dewey High School in Brooklyn, New York, which was a pet project in New York City, which was a school where they asked the question, what do you want to learn? And I sometimes think about it in the context of NBC, but you brought that alive for me.
That's lovely. I'm so thankful that someone asked you that question when you were younger. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
David.
David, for your time and effort. Bye for now.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
My pleasure.
And we're going to invite people to stay for a question and answer on the VIT now. Really glad you could make it. And we hope that if you have any questions, go ahead and simply put them in the chat for us and we will answer them. Dr. Mark Friedman is our organizer for our June-July deep dive virtual intensive training. And Jane Zawodowski is our interim director of CNVC programming. I hope I got that mostly right. And I am supporting the marketing on this. And so excited to try this new thing. According to this, we had about 80 people come in and out, and we currently have 20 people live. So any questions regarding the VIT? And while I'm doing that, if one of you would like to just let me know or just say to the audience, is there one or two or three things you really want people to know about the virtual intensive training that's coming up?
Well, I'll speak to, we have a very new and unique format. The VIT is an online version of the IIT, which is an in-person 9-day training that takes place over 9 days. And now we have an event that takes place online over 3 weekends. And it takes place over 3 weekends with a weekend in between. So it's over 5 weeks and 3 weekends. And what that means to me is that there's a lot of integration time. There's a lot of time to learn about NDC, and then you can go and practice it with your friends and family. And then you come back and you get feedback. And then you can go back and practice it again, and then you can come back and get feedback again. So it's a really interesting format to be living in community with an NBC community and at the same time living in community with your friends and family. So I think it's going to be an interesting twist. I would be interesting to see how that format impacts people's learning.
Thanks, Mark, for bringing up the 9 days, how they're broken up into 3, 3, 3 over 5 weekends. And when you spoke, you used the word community, and that's what first came to my mind, is how we're putting a lot of care. And I feel like over the past 14 months, as online offerings have really grown, we are revising and learning every single time. So I think one of the things we're doing, even with more refinement this time, is creating that sense of community and really putting a lot of care into how people get to know each other in bigger groups and in smaller groups. You've been talking about the different ways that home groups might be supportive for each other, to have a space to be together. So I really am confident and excited that we're going to be able to work with people where they're at, help them build a sense of intimacy and trust and connection with each other. And so all that kind of right-brained, fun, connective stuff, or deep, connective, meaningful stuff, is going to be integrated along with like the learning and the structure. And also our trainers. So side point is going to be too, that our trainers are sharing tips about how to make the online experience really interactive. David Weinstock does that too. Sometimes we'll be standing up and stretching or moving our bodies. And I think that they're just learning all the time about how to have that learning piece not be like boring online learning or anything. Not that it was before, but we're always learning how to kind of embody the learning. So we're not always sitting in front of our camera, just sitting in front of our computer. But I don't know, I'm just really excited to see all the options for the learning and the community.
Thank you both. We have a couple of questions. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Mark. We have a couple of questions, so I'm just gonna read them out, and then I'll ask one of you to answer them. The first question, it looks like it's from CJ Phillip, and there's a list of questions. Thank you so much. Do the sessions include participants from all 5 time zones, LA, Denver, Chicago, New York, and Rio de Janeiro? What is the maximum amount of participants in a Zoom session? How many facilitators are leading each group? And what are the breaks to provide relief from Zoom fatigue? So I'll pause there and see which of you would like to answer that.
Mark, do you want to go first, or doesn't matter really?
Yeah, well, can you answer the question about the distribution of our participants?
Oh, about how many are coming from which time zone?
From which time zone? And I would expand that question to talk about what's happening internationally as well.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. Thanks. We are accommodating the training starting at 9:00 a.m. Pacific time and ending at 5:00 Pacific, all the way past Rio de Janeiro, which would start at 1:00 in the afternoon and end at 9 p.m. for those Brazilians and everybody eating their dinner at 10 o'clock. And in fact, we have people signed up from the UK. We have people signed up from India. And I even had a few requests, and serious requests. I think we've got a person signed up from, I want to say Singapore. I've had requests from multiple Asian countries, and they're like, so Vietnam, Cambodia, Singapore, Hong Kong. But I think they're really interested and able to become nocturnal for those 9 days when they're broken up like that. We're taking that into consideration as we're forming the smaller groups of people. And sessions will be recorded as well, which I think is a really beautiful gift, because then people who do just experience some fatigue or whatever and have to miss a session can watch it in that 12 days in between the weekends. So I'll pause there. Mark, you want to add on with any of the other questions?
Yeah, Jane, you mentioned how much care we're putting into wanting to have a lot of care for the participants. So we have a team of 4 certified trainers, and we will have other people who are skilled in NVC, who we're calling empathy angels, who will be helping out with some of the work that's going on. The trainers talked about being willing to have a group as large as 100. But before we get to that group of 100, the trainers are concerned about caring for the participants. So when we get to a size of 60, they're wanting to check themselves and see if they have the capacity to go more than 60. So they're in the process right now of training, of creating the program. And the program is being created with the intention of really caring for the participants. So that's how I would answer the questions around how many participants in the group. It's not about numbers as much as it's about care.
And even
If I
little
could
Zoom,
take
there are little Zoom tips that we are incorporating. So instructions for the breakout rooms. I've gone to so many trainings online for NVC, and sometimes I don't know what to do in a breakout room because I didn't quite catch the instructions. So we're looking at and reflecting on our own learning experiences as well. And we'll have methods where instructions will be able to be written out into the chat. Some of the trainers might have live demos that people can all watch before they go in their breakout room. So it's a lot of, like, Lori Bauer, one of the trainers, is a certified public school teacher, which my background is also. And so it's a lot of like, so who can repeat the instructions for me kind of a thing. And lots of ways to check that people are really on the same page and able to like progress with each other and have clarity. So I think that, Mark, I'm trying to just buttress what you're saying about the quality of connection that people will be experiencing. So there'll be clear instructions, we're aware, we're learning, and open to feedback.
And I'd like to address the question about, can I keep going, Eric? Yeah, I'd like to speak about the question about when are the breaks to provide relief from Zoom fatigue.
Oh yeah.
So what I'd like to say about that is that we have trainers whose intention are to introduce exercises that are very interactive, that get people up. The trainers are very aware of Zoom fatigue, and their intention is to offer exercises, offer processes, make the day such that we minimize Zoom fatigue because we're moving around and we're doing interactive, fun things as opposed to just staring at a screen and learning NVC. And one of the things that I would say about a VIT is a VIT is all about living NVC. It's not about staring at a screen and learning the specifics of the practice that Marshall put in place and learning the technology and then memorizing needs and feeling lists. It's about being in community, living life, and then learning how to live in a different way in community. That's what I would say about fatigue, that we're absolutely aware and we're looking at doing things that will not introduce Zoom fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an awareness. And I just wanted to add, having done both the international intensive training and the virtual, both have tremendous advantages. And actually, I only think of them as advantages. At the international intensive training, I was there and I felt like I didn't want to miss out. So I went to something every single day. Every single hour something was offered, I was there. I didn't miss a single session. And other people were taking naps. And I was like, how can you be taking a nap? This stuff is so awesome. That was in person. And then I got to the VIT, and honestly, I tried to do the same thing for the first few days. And then I realized, hey, wait a minute, this stuff is being recorded. I don't have to do this. And then there were other options. I could actually go for a walk and just listen and dial in. The other thing that was really cool is that in between, during breaks, there was a community room, and I could go into the community room and just eat with my friends or take a walk. So take a walk with my friends and just be dialed in. So I didn't have to actually look at the stuff. And by the way, we have a discount coming up. So if you stay to the end, we'll have a discount coming up for you. And the other thing that I love so much about the VIT was I got to meet so many people from so many different places. So there was a woman from Africa who was studying in Scotland, and she came on and she was on late, like all night long. And there was there were people from India who came on, and they were on all the time during our hours. And I was so grateful they chose to do that so that I could see them in my time zone. And one of the instructors was in Europe, and the other instructors were in Japan. So it was an amazing experience, the VIT compared to the IIT. And and think of it as it's an opportunity to actually exercise self-care and think about the might miss out and all of those other things. That's probably more than you wanted to hear, but that's the answer to your question. And there's a thank you from CJ Phillip. Thank you. And we hope that you'll choose to sign up, and we'll have a discount code towards the end. So you should stay for the end. And then, does that feel pretty complete for you, Mark and Jane? And we'll move to the next question. Okay. Let's see. The next question is, this one's probably for Jane. Will VITs continue offered from now on, as in after the pandemic is over? And I like the question because she says the pandemic will be over. So that's very hopeful for me. Jane, what's going to happen with VITs?
I like that question too. For that reason, we don't see VITs going away because they offer benefits that you can't really get when you need to travel to different parts of the world, or people don't have work schedules, or they have families with young children, or they might be caring for parents. And so the VITs offer a lot of convenience and flexibility for people. And we're open to suggestions too. If you have any suggestions about structuring a VIT that would meet your needs, please email us and let me know. My email is jane@cnvc.org, and I'm very open to hearing proposals from people and being in touch with you about what works for you. But yeah, for all those reasons, I want to keep VITs going, as well as we're really excited to get IITs back in action whenever that's possible and safe for people across the globe.
Oh, great, thank you. I'm running 3 video screens here, and one of them has an audio video delay and one of them doesn't. And I'm just trying to monitor everything. So thank you for your question, Joan, on that. Hopefully that answered your question. Let's see, we're gonna wait another few seconds here to see. We're hoping to offer a discount if you stay, and we still see there are people staying because they just want that discount or because they have real questions. Let's see.
Oh, Eric, let's just give them the discount. Oh my gosh.
Okay, you want to just give them the discount? Okay, fine. You give them the discount.
Well, so we would be really pleased to offer people who were here today $200 off, and just write in and say that you were here. Again, just write jane@cnbc.org and mention being here on the call tonight. Just feels nice to be in connection with people. And so we thought it was a great idea. Anybody want to say anything else about that?
I think that we want, so that's going to be good if they email you now and they register within 2 hours of when they receive the code. So the code you're going to give them is only going to be good for an hour to 2 hours after they receive it. So please register. And we want to point out, this is actually for the sustainability of our trainers, number one, and the sustainability of the organization. We want to continue to spread NVC. I think this is why Mark and Jane are actually putting in many more hours, many more hours than expected, and really volunteering time. And I'm volunteering time as well, but we're all volunteering time because we believe in the mission of the Center for Nonviolent Communication. So please sign up. If you can donate more, great, but please sign up and then email jane@cnvc.org for that discount code and sign up within 1 hour of when you get it. Go ahead.
Well, Mark, you wrote a really nice email to people who had been on our website and had begun to register. And I was just, again, touched by how you refer to how nonviolent communication really transforms your life. I was talking to somebody who I'm going to be having a meeting in their physical space soon, and they normally charge a lot more than they are going to charge me because my meeting's related to nonviolent communication. And people are so moved by creating more peace in the world. And it just takes me not to go to a lofty place, but a place of passion. It's like really deep and burning inside of me. It always has been since I was 12 and I was different, and I found my way. And so, every time, Mark, that you write or talk to me that way, I feel that kinship with us, and people resonate with that too. They just want to figure out a way to contribute to something better in the world. Even use the word better, but it goes back to the systems of power over and shared power that I think David was talking about at the beginning of our time together tonight. And it's really motivating to me. So yeah, thanks, Eric, for kind of bringing it up how you did. It just brought me back to the power of this, the beauty of this, the burning desire inside of me. And I think Mark and you too. So we want people who share that to come join us.
What I'm really aware of, and it's such a simple lesson, and it's taken me a long time to learn it, is I just want to be with people. And it was difficult for me to be with people when I was young. I was, I was scared of people, but I was actually similar to what Eric said. I wasn't necessarily scared of people. I was scared of myself. I had this fear living within me, and nonviolent communication certainly helped open me up. There are other ways that I've learned to open up and be less fearful of people, but NVC certainly is, and I shared this on the video I created, that, what's been special for me about nonviolent communication is to be with myself and to be with you at the same time. And prior to nonviolent communication was either all about me or was all about you. And the other thing I'll just mention is the other thing that nonviolent communication teaches me is to make requests. I am bolder and more courageous than I ever could have imagined I would be. I'm willing to reach out to people who previously I would have put on a pedestal, and it's like, oh my God, I can't talk to that person. But what I recognize today is that when I'm making a request, all I'm doing is making a request and not a demand. And I'm asking for a need that's important to me to be met. And I'm also taking into consideration what's important for that other person. So there's no demand energy. There's no, it has to be done. And that just makes it easier for me to make a request because I can get a no, and that's okay. So that's some of what's special about NVC for me.
It reminds me, Mark, of how you said earlier that the word freedom came up for you. And it reminds me too, a lot of people in NVC talk about how there's so much choice that we find waking up inside of us, that ability to make requests is related to freedom and choice. And yeah.
Yes, yes.
I really love those notes. So I think we could probably, I really love the interaction between you two just now. I think it'd be okay for us to wrap up. Is that okay, Mark and Jane? Are we in a consensus agreement?
Yeah, I just saw that Michelle is watching also. Hi, Michelle. I know her. I think most of us know her from different previous NBC activities online together.
Yeah, I just want to say that
Oh, I
it's
don't
been a
see her.
wonderful hour together. It was wonderful seeing David again. And I enjoy both you and Jane, Jane, and you, Eric. And I'm glad we got to spend some time together.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
me
it's
too.
fun. We should do this more often without David, probably, huh?
Maybe we can do a monthly series.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Yes. Lessons with Jane, Mark, and Eric. JME. Okay. Let's see what happens. So thank you all. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thank you, CJ. Thank you for all of your comments. We are so happy you're here. And Mark, did you wave to say goodbye, or because you wanted to say something? Can't
I
read you
waved
yet.
to say goodbye.
Okay. So thank you, everybody. We're going to end the stream now. Send us your questions. We'll try to respond, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm going to count us out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye. 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 On now. Okay, yeah.
Oh gosh, now I'm seeing myself on my phone waving again, since that didn't look dorky enough the first time.
Yeah.
I just can't watch videos.
Yeah,
of
the
myself.
first time.
Okay,
That's
I
right.
am going to run. Good video. I'll see you on Thursday.